Hello, everyone. I am excited because on our show we have the legend herself, Dr. Terry Wahls. She is a leader in autoimmunity and in functional medicine. She has a phenomenal story, and she's been an inspiration to all of us in the integrative functional medicine longevity space. And I'll let you tell her if you haven't heard of her. I'll let you tell her a little about herself. But I can tell you this, that and when I have a patient with autoimmunity, her protocol, her food plan is what I give them, and it's one of the things that made me believe in functional medicine. So, Dr. Wahls, thank you so much for blessing us with your time, and welcome to the show.
Hey, Dr. E, thank you so much.
My pleasure. So can you give us your 76-second bio?
Okay, so I'm a clinical professor of medicine at the University of Iowa, and I have secondary progressive multiple sclerosis, diagnosed with MS in 2000 at age 45. Within 3 years, I'd converted to secondary progressive MS, was in a tilt-recline wheelchair, and relentlessly worse. Now, fortunately, I began experimenting on myself, discovered functional medicine, created a diet and lifestyle program that stopped the decline, reversed my disability, and a year later, I'm biking, I'm hiking. In fact, now, 15 years later, I am jogging, strength training, and I'm doing clinical trials testing the efficacy of my protocol and others with secondary progressive MS, primary progressive MS, and in relapsing, remitting multiple sclerosis.
Amazing. And you were wheelchair bound, right?
I could not even sit up
Wow.
in 2007.
Wow.
It was clear I was going to become demented by my illness, bedridden by my illness, and probably dying with intractable, horrific trigeminal neuralgia pain.
And how long ago was this?
So that was 2007.
Okay. Wow. For the audience, I would say if they could take a look, you have a very popular TED Talk that you did that kind of went deeper in your story. And I actually want to tell them now what's the title of that, because I think that once they're done with this, that they should take a listen to it.
So minding your mitochondria.
Minding your mitochondria. So take a look. I actually have all my patients with MS watch it. I'll have other patients that have autoimmunity where the body attacks itself watch it. So I know it has how many million views?
4 million views.
4 million, like at least 50 of them are from me sending patients. So you're welcome. So Dr. Wahls, how do you approach, you have a patient that comes in with MS. How do you start? Where do you even start? How do you approach it?
I want to know that patient. I want to know how old they are. I want to know, have they had an MRI, how many lesions they have, their level of disability. And then we talk about, do they want to have a big comprehensive program? And some people are ready to have a big comprehensive program. Others need a smaller bit-by-bit change. Okay. And I explained that you'll do much better if you do this as a family. And so if you and your family are ready for a big change, we can lay that out for you. If you and your family need a smaller bit-by-bit change, then I'll start with, here are the foods to add, because additions are way easier than subtractions.
Okay.
Again, it's a family intervention that is much more successful.
Okay. I like that because, you start trying to change what you eat, and foods are probably the number one addiction out there.
Absolutely. And I also make clear that this is not a take disease-modifying treatments or do the Wahls Protocol and diet and lifestyle. You can do both.
Okay.
And the more severe the disability at present, the more severe the lesion load, so deeper in the brain, deeper in the spinal cord, the higher number of lesions, the more I'm going to be encouraging you, please take disease-modifying treatments because we need to stop the disease activity.
Okay.
I want everyone to do the Wahls Protocol, diet and lifestyle as part of their wellness routine. And depending on your tolerance for the potential adverse effects from disease-modifying treatments, people may be more afraid of their disability progression or more afraid of the potential for serious adverse effects from the DMTs.
So you get a patient in, and they're kind of a little bit on the fence. They're like, I don't know if I can change everything. I want the least aggressive program. Tell me, where do I start?
So if we're going to go bit by bit, now I'm going to talk about, we've got nutrition, we've got sleep, we've got stress reduction, we've got exercise.
Okay.
Which of these 4 domains do you want to start with?
Let's start with nutrition.
So if we need to go bit by bit, I'm going to try and sell them on why we want to have more green leafy vegetables.
Okay.
And if you were in my clinics at the VA, we'd have a demonstration. I'd pass you some kale, and I'd say, eat this kale raw. We're going to eat it together. We'll agree, like, oh my God, it's bitter, it's terrible. There's no way I can eat it. And my kids will never eat it. And I go, yep, we get that. So now we add green grapes, kale, olive oil, ice. We make a smoothie. And now we have that smoothie, and they're like, well, actually, that is pretty good. I could have that. My kids would have that. Like, okay. And then we sort out, would you be willing to eat bacon or not? If they're a bacon eater, we'll fry up some bacon to the desired level of doneness, take it out, chop it up, add the chopped kale, stir it till it's wilted, add the chopped bacon back, and we serve that back to them.
Okay.
And they're like, well, actually, that's pretty delicious. And I think my spouse would like that, and so would my kids.
Okay.
And that's the basic recipe to make bitter vegetables taste good.
I love that idea, that concept of having them try it by itself first.
Right, because we need to help them understand that
Yeah.
vegetables became bitter when we went low fat. And if we have a food experience and realize that food can become delicious,
Okay.
now adding those greens, which are so powerful for your retinal health and your brain health, is easy.
So wait a minute. Bacon is that healthy?
Well, it depends on how much you're having
Okay.
and how it's processed.
Okay.
So if people are uncomfortable with bacon, we can use ghee, we could use coconut oil, you could use some other rendered saturated fat.
Well, what's a healthier bacon?
So a bacon that doesn't have nitrates added to it,
Okay.
that is organic,
Okay.
that is a pastured bacon, that will be better. And by the way, people who have a high cholesterol, we can put on a low saturated fat diet, and we're not using the bacon then, and we are adding a lot of olive oil, pesto to that kale after we've sautéed it in a bit of broth. So I have a low saturated fat version to my diet as well as a standard version.
So you went, you could have picked any vegetable and you went right to kale. Is it that important?
Because green leafy vegetables, super important, and kale is so bitter because I want people to have an experience with a bitter vegetable that is intolerable and to teach them how to make it delicious.
Nice. I need to get kale in my office. I need to start doing that.
Right,
That
that food experience is so powerful.
Okay. So with nutrition, with a more simpler plan, you introduce them to kale and say, I need you to do how much of the, do you give them a number or do you?
So I want them to have 3 cups, ideally every day, but at least 3 times a week.
Okay. 3 cups of
kale.
leafy, just kale.
Leafy greens, a
Okay.
variety of greens, measured raw, that you can make into a smoothie. If you make cooked greens, now it's going to shrink down to about a cup on your plate. So it's really quite manageable. And I let them know that 3 cups of leafy greens every day is ideal, but at least 3 times a week.
Now, I remember years ago when I went on your protocol, I remember I was blending, I think I threw broccoli in as well, raw. And I remember in the beginning, my stomach hurt a little bit.
Yeah,
Did
you're
you
right.
see that often?
Yeah, it will depend on your microbiome. It will also depend on how you metabolize sulfur.
Okay.
And if we have people who have a lot of bloating, we may have to have a smaller amount of sulfur-rich vegetables.
Okay.
It may be that we're going to lean into mushrooms instead. And mushrooms are really, really great for us. They're, from the observational studies, the more servings of mushrooms that you have, edible, of course, none of
Right.
the poisonous ones,
Right.
you're going to have less anxiety, less depression, less cognitive decline. And in my clinical trials, we've made it clear that we want everyone to have a serving of mushrooms every day for that reason.
Amazing. And then you just got to make sure they don't go say, my doctor put me on shrooms.
Correct.
Right. Okay. You gotta let me know what kind of mushroom, but it's just the mushrooms they get at the store, right?
You know, any of the mushrooms will be great.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be shiitake, although shiitake are wonderful. And even the white button mushrooms are fabulously good for us.
So it's 3 cups daily if they can, otherwise 3 times a week of the leafy greens or mushrooms.
No.
Or mushrooms. Okay.
3 of the leafy
Okay.
greens.
Yes.
And then I like to have 3 cups of the cabbage, onion, mushroom family vegetables.
Okay. Cabbage,
Now-
onion, mushroom. Okay.
You know, I'm a tall woman, 6 foot tall. You're a guy. We should be able to do 9 cups of vegetables a day.
Okay.
Our petite listeners, they're not going to be able to do 9 cups.
Yeah.
You know, particularly the petite ladies, they may be doing 4 to 6 cups of vegetables, measured
Okay.
raw. If you cook them, they're going to shrink by half. So again, I don't want you to overconsume. Eat according to your appetite.
So 2 to 3, and if they're splitting it throughout the day, like 9 at once, you're not going to do. But you're kind of doing it like 3 meals a day. Is that how? Or
Well, I do 1 meal a day myself now, but
Oh, wow.
most of our clients are doing 2 to 3 meals a day.
okay, so do you just take all 9 and put it in there?
So when you saute it, you'll have a big plate full of vegetables that have been cooked, and then a plate full of the protein sources.
Okay, so 3 cups of the leafy green, 3 cups of, you said,
Cabbage, onion, mushroom family vegetables,
and they can cook those as well.
and they can cook those. And
then?
3 cups of deeply colored, so think of carrots, beets, berries.
Okay. And are they allowed any fruits they want, or?
You know, my preference is that your fruits are deeply pigmented fruits. If you slice the fruit, there's pigment all the way through. So berries would be a great example. Citrus would be another example. The stone fruits, peaches, nectarines. The starchier fruits, bananas, pears, apples, have benefits, but there's a lot of carbs. And so I would rather you get non-starchy vegetables and berries. There's just more nutrients, more polyphenols in those foods.
And is there a link between sugar and carbs and MS and autoimmunity?
Well, the people with MS, if you have insulin resistance, you have far worse outcomes.
Okay.
And, 1 in 3 Americans have insulin resistance. 1 in 6 have diabetes. And so many of my MS patients, because we have a higher rate of insulin resistance, have insulin resistance and they don't know it. So in my clinic, we check for that. And that's one of the reasons why I prefer that people lean into the non-starchy vegetables. Now, when we look at the average American diet, that's about 350 grams of carbs that we're eating every day. If you do, the paleo diet, the Wahls paleo diet, that's about 80 grams of carbs. That's a really big change. You're still having some starchy vegetables, and that's a huge improvement. If you do a ketogenic version of my diet, that's 30 to 50 grams of carbs. So I have a variety of nutritional plans that I tailor based on the person's metabolic health and their other comorbid medical issues. So
you have patients get the 9 servings or maybe 6, depending on their size, of these specific types of vegetables and fruit every day. What about supplementation?
I think supplements can be super helpful.
Okay.
My earliest forays was I was trying to do my self-care. I looked at Bruce Ames and his early work saying that targeted supplements could reverse neurodegenerative diseases. And I, based on my review of Dr. Ames' work, I decided that mitochondrial dysfunction drove disability. So he had 40 vitamins, minerals, antioxidants that he identified as were really critical. So I started creating a really basic cocktail that was very helpful. It lowered my fatigue, but when I finally had the aha to redesign my Paleolithic diet based on the supplements I learned from Dr. Ames and the Institute for Functional Medicine, that's when the real magic happened, and that's when I had this, dramatic restoration of my energy and vitality. And and then I went from being unable to sit up to riding my bike 18.5 miles, 1 year later.
And with taking certain supplements?
So I'm still taking supplements, yeah. And I still take a lot of supplements.
What would you say the top maybe 3 to 5 supplements you found? to be beneficial?
Vitamin D plus
Okay.
K2,
Okay.
a multivitamin, multimineral,
Okay.
fish oil.
Okay.
So those three are really very vital. Then I'm going to add in lipoic acid, carnitine, and acetylcysteine.
What I really like about this is that it allows people, you're not telling people stop eating, because some people are ready to or stop eating certain things. You're
Yeah.
just telling them what to add. And I love this approach because we have to meet people where they're at, and otherwise we'll lose people. And have you found, following this approach, have you found people getting better even though they're eating maybe some junk food with it?
You know, the speed of their recovery will be improved if they can take out the added sugars, the flour-based products. However, if that's not what they and their family can do, we will maybe have them do a Mediterranean diet, or we may just have them focus on here are the foods to add and here are the supplements to add. And they will improve as well. What is super interesting, again, depending on the severity of the symptoms, I do have some people, when I say, okay, here's the big plan, and they surprise me. We say, yep, I'm ready, even though it's going to be really hard.
Right.
But in my VA clinic,
Yeah.
probably the most often was people needed to do the incremental plan.
And the incremental, I love the incremental plan, because you start adding healthier foods, then you start just psychologically with time, you start eating less of the things you know are not so healthy.
Correct.
So you mentioned the 3 supplements. Now I know there's the full protocol for those people that are ready to go all in, and you have a book out there, right?
Correct. So I have a couple books.
Which book do you think, if somebody's like, I just want to know, I need to know this protocol, the ins and outs, which book would you recommend?
So the Wahls Protocol, a radical new way to treat all chronic autoimmune conditions using paleo principles. It was revised just as the pandemic came out, so it came out in 2020. So great information. If they got the original book that came out in 2014, it's really worth getting the updated, revised version.
Nice. So you had some significant updates
Yeah,
to that,
a lot of
book as
updates.
well. So what are you excited about now? I heard something about a summit that's happening.
Yeah. So I'm doing a multiple sclerosis and autoimmune summit. I'm doing the interviews right now, and this is free. It's online, so it's a great way to get this information out to tens of thousands of people with MS. And again, we'll have more information about that on my website at terrywahls.com. Although that information won't show up until April, because the summit is happening at the end of April.
Okay, so they got to mark their calendars, and then after the summit is over, because I take it you're going to get experts that are speaking about autoimmunity.
We're having lots of experts. We're going to be talking about autoimmunity. We'll be talking about the wellness and self-care routines that we can do that are under our control that will help reduce our fatigue, improve our mental clarity, reduce our pain, help us improve our function. So a lot of incremental things that we can do, step by step, according to the domain that you're most interested in. Maybe you're most interested in nutrition. You want to focus more in on stress or on sleep or on improving motor strength. We have lots of tools for you.
Now, in a conventional medicine approach, if they just went to a conventional, your rheumatologist, right?
So, rheumatologist, or if say inflammatory bowel disease, a GI doc, a neurologist. If you have a multiple sclerosis or some other systemic autoimmune condition affecting your brain.
And what would they have you do?
Take the DMTs and eat what you want.
Very different.
Although I will say, we've been doing research. We've been presented at the international meetings for MS research, and my ideas are not so crazy anymore. And there are more neurologists who are saying, yes, they are talking about diet, and they are talking about the Wahls Protocol. And when I go to the Consortium of MS Centers, which is the big clinical and research meeting, more than neurologists are stopping me saying, Dr. Wahls, could my nurse get a picture of the two of us? My patients would so appreciate that. So I'm not so crazy anymore.
No, I think what you did is, I think that because you were able to get the message out there, regardless of what the doctor thought about it, the patients were jumping on it anyway, and they some of them were probably dragged into.
Yes, I think that is true.
Yeah.
And what the neurologists are telling me is that their patients are coming in, bringing the book, and their patients are improving. And what they began to realize is that, yes, they would rather their patients be on their DMTs, but the folks who also improve their diet do, in fact, much, much better.
Amazing. And I'm sure that part of just empowering people, giving them something to do, not just take
Something
this medicine.
to do. Yes, yeah. And I think, I've tried to make it much more clear in my presence that I'm not anti-DMT. That, yes, there is a role for DMTs, and that everybody has to make a very personal decision about my risk tolerance for progression of my disability versus my risk tolerance for side effects from the DMT.
Right. But if I could not be on one, I would rather
Correct.
not be on one, right?
But I want people to know that if you're
Yeah.
on a DMT and
Yeah.
you discover my work, stay on your DMT,
Yeah.
implement my protocol,
Uh-huh.
and then work with your physician after you've had a great result to transition to a less potent DMT, and then often you're able to transition off the DMT.
Right. But they need to talk to their doctors.
You talk
and
to your
they need
doctor.
do it in coordination with them.
Right, you do it in coordination with your medical team.
Dr. Wahls, how do people stay connected with you?
So, number one, follow me on Instagram, because that way you get to see what I'm eating and doing. That is super fun. So that's Dr. Terry Wahls. You can go to my website, terrywahls.com, and be sure to scroll down to the bottom and put your name in so you can be part of my emails.
Amazing. Dr. Wahls, thank you so much for your time today and for the work that you're doing. And talk about legacy. We talked in some of the interviews today about legacy and people wanting a legacy. And man, you already got one.
Yeah, yeah. I tell my medical students, my postdocs, that it's my mission to change the standard of care so that every MS patient will be told, yep, we have great DMTs, but just as important is improving your diet, your stress management, your sleep, and your movement.
Dr. Wahls, thank you so much.
Thank you.